The year is 722. Picture this moment. 300 starving Spanish refugees, cornered inside a mountain cave, stare down an Islamic fighting force exceeding 100,000 battle-hardened warriors. Before the sun disappears behind the peaks, these cave-dwelling outcasts will achieve the impossible. They'll annihilate this colossal army and ignite an 800-year campaign to reclaim Spain. This is the Reconquista's birth story, and it begins with odds so insane they defy belief. Consider these numbers for a moment. One defender facing 333 invaders. Europe's Christian future dangling by a thread in some forgotten Spanish cave. Stick with me through this video, and you'll see how terrain, unshakable faith, and raw desperation fused together to forge medieval warfare's most devastating upset. You're about to discover the ingenious weapon system that transformed mountain rocks into precision-guided death. You'll witness the catastrophic blunder made by the Muslim general that doomed his entire force before combat even started. And you'll see how a disgraced nobleman's hiding place became Western Christianity's final stronghold. Visualize the scene. Limestone drips echo through darkness. The air carries the unmistakable scent of terror, mixed with iron resolve. These weren't armored knights or professional soldiers. These were goat herders, criminals on the run, and shattered aristocrats who'd lost their entire world. Leading them stood Pelagius, a man with a bounty on his head worth a small kingdom's treasury. Now imagine what's marching toward them. Dust clouds visible from leagues away. War drums thundering through mountain passes like approaching doom. Combat veterans who'd carved an empire stretching from the Indus Valley to the gates of Paris. Warriors wielding Damascus steel and composite bows capable of delivering death at 300 paces. How did Pelagius predict the enemy would arrive at this precise location? What drove experienced Islamic commanders to abandon the basic military principles they'd used to conquer half the civilized world? And here's what really makes your mind spin. Why did local Spanish Muslims choose to fight alongside Christian defenders? How could mounted elite cavalry be obliterated by farmers hurling stones? How did news of this microscopic skirmish spread across all of Europe within mere weeks? And what horrifying secret from Pelagius' past made him choose certain death over submission? To grasp how this David crushed Goliath, using geography instead of divine intervention, we must rewind 11 years to when Islamic forces first set foot in Spain. If history's greatest long-shot victories and world-altering battles fascinate you, smash that like button and subscribe for more epic warfare content. Hit the notification bell so you never miss our deep explorations into history's most mind-blowing military moments. Let me take you back to 8th century Iberia, where everything was about to transform. The year 711 shattered Spain's world. In just 24 months, the powerful Visigothic kingdom, which had dominated for 300 years, collapsed like a house of cards. Islamic armies swept across the Iberian Peninsula with breathtaking velocity, demolishing every military force standing in their path. Cities surrendered one after another. Toledo, the magnificent capital, opened its gates without resistance. Roderick, the final Visigothic monarch, fell on the battlefield, taking his kingdom to the grave with him. But here's where things get absolutely wild. Among those who survived the palace massacre was a warrior named Pelagius the Exile. This man had once served as royal bodyguard to kings. Now, he was a fugitive hiding in wilderness peaks. The Islamic conquerors had marked him for execution, not because of any crime, but because of what he symbolized, the old order refusing to accept defeat. Commanding the Islamic armies in northern Spain was a military genius called Al-Qama, nicknamed the Avalanche. This commander had never tasted defeat. He'd shattered armies 10 times his size through pure tactical genius. Battle-scarred veterans whispered his name with a mixture of fear and respect. When Alqama's forces marched, entire kingdoms fell like dominoes. Yet the true authority in the northern territories was Munuza, the practical Muslim governor who preferred peace over bloodshed. He grasped something Alqama couldn't see from his tactical maps. The Asturian mountains were fundamentally different. These weren't the Syrian plains or Arabian deserts where conventional warfare meant everything. These were vertical stone labyrinths where normal military rules meant absolutely nothing. The Muslim occupation imposed a straightforward tribute system. Embrace Islam or pay the tax. Most inhabitants paid. Some converted. But deep in the Asturian peaks, Pelagius declared, never. This wasn't about money. Even shepherds could afford the tribute. This was about the spiritual soul of an entire continent. You need to understand the landscape. Asturias is where Spain literally runs out of space, crushed between towering mountains and the sea. Valleys so constricted that 20 determined men could hold off thousands. Peaks so elevated that clouds nest below their summits. Rivers that transform into raging torrents within minutes. This terrain had never been conquered, not by Roman legions, not by Visigothic armies. And Pelagius was wagering his life that Islamic forces wouldn't conquer it either. What unfolded next violated every principle of military wisdom. Pelagius didn't just refuse to pay tribute. He launched aggressive raids against Muslim tax collectors. Each successful ambush attracted more followers, shepherds who knew every concealed mountain trail, dispossessed nobles with nothing remaining to lose, former warriors who still remembered the art of combat, even some local Muslims who despised Alqama's brutal governance. The religious schism cut deep into both sides. This transcended land ownership or gold. Christians viewed the Muslim conquest as the prophesied apocalypse. Muslims saw Christian resistance as rebellion against God's manifest will. Neither faction could retreat without betraying their core beliefs. When reports reached Alqama that some minor nobleman was causing trouble in worthless mountain territory, he actually laughed. These weren't the first rebels he'd confronted. He'd crushed Berber uprisings in Africa, Persian holdouts in the east. What could shepherd rebels possibly accomplish against professional soldiers? But listen closely, Munuza knew better. He'd governed these mountains for years. He dispatched urgent warnings to Alqama. The mountains here aren't like anywhere else. The people are forged differently. Send diplomats, not armies. But Alqama had direct orders from Damascus. Crush all resistance. Make brutal examples. Demonstrate that rebellion equals death. When Alqama received his marching orders to annihilate the rebellion, he laughed again. He was about to learn a harsh lesson. Mountain warfare follows completely different rules. In the valleys of Asturias, numerical superiority meant nothing. Combat experience meant nothing. Only the mountains mattered. And the mountains had already chosen their champion. The military force Alqama assembled would fill any general with supreme confidence. 10,000 confirmed elite cavalry. Chronicles would later wildly claim 124,000 total forces. But even the conservative estimate was absolutely overwhelming. These weren't peasant conscripts or temporary levies. These were professional killers, each man a veteran of multiple continental campaigns. Their equipment alone told the epic story of an empire. Damascus steel blades that could slice clean through iron. Composite bows with a 300-yard lethal range, technology captured from the steppes and perfected in Syrian weapons forges. Scale armor that deflected most weapons while permitting fluid movement. The supply column stretched back 5 miles. Ammunition, provisions, siege machinery, everything required to sustain a prolonged campaign. These warriors had conquered territories from India to France. They'd destroyed the mighty Sasanian Persian Empire, obliterated Byzantine forces in Syria, swept across North Africa like an unstoppable wildfire. They'd adapted to every conceivable terrain, every imaginable enemy: desert combat, mountain warfare, siege operations. There was literally nothing they hadn't mastered. But Pelagius possessed one crucial advantage Al-Qama couldn't detect from his intelligence reports and military maps. His force numbered just 300 men who owned nothing except their burning hatred. Look at their pathetic arsenal: hunting bows passed down through generations, maybe 50 arrows per fighter. Shepherd slings, the kind used for driving off wolves from flocks. Rusted Visigothic swords scavenged from ancient battlefields. Wooden shields that would shatter under a proper blow. Some warriors possessed nothing but sharpened farming implements. Yet these desperate men possessed something absolutely priceless: knowledge. Every cave system in these mountains, every goat path invisible to lowland eyes, every unstable stone that could trigger a catastrophic rock slide. They knew which valleys flash flooded during storms, which passes transformed into screaming wind tunnels, where echoes could amplify 10 men to sound like 100. This landscape was carved into their collective souls across generations. Remember this ratio. For every single defender, 33 attackers would march into those mountain passes. The approach march built unbearable tension with each passing day. Al-Qama's army pushed north from Len, supremely confident and impeccably organized. Day 1, perfect Roman roads. Soldiers singing victory songs, morale sky high. Day 2, roads degraded into narrow paths. Songs transformed into muttered complaints about the constricting valleys. Day 3, paths became treacherous goat tracks. Complaints evolved into nervous, oppressive silence. Then the mountain rains arrived, and everything changed forever. Mountain precipitation isn't like plains rainfall. It transforms paths into raging torrents, solid earth into sliding mud traps. Armor transformed from protection into a curse, dragging soldiers down. Horses slipped and tumbled, taking riders into bottomless ravines. The supply train bogged down completely, separating from fighting units. What should have required a 3-day march stretched into 10 days of absolute misery. But here's the game-changing detail: Pelagius' scouts were watching. They knew the exact position of Muslim forces every single day. They left unmistakable messages. Mutilated Muslim scout corpses arranged to be discovered at dawn. Arrows launched from impossible positions, killing officers in broad daylight. Rock slides that appeared natural but happened too precisely to be coincidental. Psychological warfare at its most primitive and brutally effective. By the time Al-Qama's force approached Covadonga, they were exhausted, paranoid, and dangerously strung out through a valley that kept narrowing like a closing fist. The war drums that had announced their imperial power now echoed off canyon walls, transforming into an omen of approaching doom. The cave selection wasn't random chance. It was chosen for acoustic properties and killing angles. The cave of Covadonga perched like a natural fortress designed by the gods themselves, approached by a single narrow trail with a fatal drop on one side and a sheer cliff face on the other. The cave entrance sat 40 feet up the cliff face, accessible only by scrambling up wet limestone while completely exposed to missiles from above. Inside, natural chambers capable of sheltering hundreds, fresh water flowing from underground springs, multiple escape routes known exclusively to locals. But most critically important, the acoustic properties. War cries from inside were naturally amplified and focused down the valley, making defenders sound like thousands. And then it began, the sound that haunted survivors for the rest of their lives. Christian war anthems echoing from that cave mouth, growing louder as Muslim forces drew closer. Ancient Visigothic battle hymns mixed with local mountain calls, creating a wall of sound that seemed to emerge from the rock itself. As Alcama studied the approach, his Berber mountain troops issued urgent warnings. These weren't their mountains, but they recognized a death trap when they saw one. The valley was a funnel. The cave was bait. This entire situation screamed ambush. But Alcama had orders from Damascus and a reputation to protect. No rabble hiding in a cave would force him to retreat in disgrace. As dawn broke on the battle day, both commanders made choices that would echo through 8 centuries of history. Dawn revealed a valley transformed into a weapon system. Morning mist clung to the slopes, concealing the upper reaches where Pelagius fighters waited like predators. The Muslim army, magnificent on open ground, found itself compressed by geography into a serpent of steel and flesh, winding through an ever-constricting passage. Imagine yourself in that marching column. You begin at the valley entrance, where 2,000 soldiers can march abreast. Advance forward 1 mile, and it narrows to 200. Push another half mile, and barely 20 men can stand shoulder to shoulder. The final approach to the cave? Single file, with death drops on one side and vertical cliff on the other. This is precisely where Alcama committed his catastrophic error. Any competent commander would immediately recognize this as a killing ground and refuse engagement. But Alcama saw only peasant rebels in a cave, not the trap nature had constructed over millennia. His pride demanded these peasants face justice. He ordered the full advance. First contact emerged from shadows. Arrows launched from positions impossible to identify, finding gaps in armor with suspicious accuracy. Officers dropped first, men marked by superior equipment and confident posture. Each death forced a hesitation, a bunching up of forces that created even better targets. What happened next violated every rule of medieval warfare. Instead of withdrawing to favorable ground, Alcama responded with overwhelming force. Deploy the Berber mountain specialists, he commanded. These were his elite units, men raised in the Atlas Mountains who should have been capable of handling this terrain. The Berbers advanced with professional skill, using cover intelligently, moving in coordinated bounds. They reached the cliff base below the cave entrance. That's when they heard it. Pelagius' voice, amplified by cave acoustics, delivering a speech chroniclers, would record in dozens of versions. Warriors of Asturias, today we fight not merely for ourselves, but for every Christian soul remaining in Iberia. Today these valleys will flow red with invader blood. Today we reclaim our Father's kingdom. Trust in Christ and your strong arms. Death to God's enemies. The Muslim herald stepped forward with the standard ultimatum: submit, convert, or perish. Terms that had succeeded across 3 continents. The response came not through words, but through action. An arrow that punched through the herald's throat, followed by a devastating shower of stones that sent the Berber vanguard scrambling for cover. Now you understand why Alcama's officers had desperately begged him to avoid this confrontation. But it was far too late to withdraw without catastrophic loss of face. The first assault wave involved 1,000 soldiers compressed into space designed for 50. Imagine the physics: armored warriors pressed together so tightly they couldn't properly raise their weapons. Those at the front couldn't retreat. Those pushing from behind couldn't stop. The mass of humanity became its own worst enemy. And this is where it becomes absolutely savage. As Muslim forces bunched up below the cave, struggling to deploy in the impossibly narrow space, Pelagius' men began their deadly work. Not with swords or spears, but with stones. Not random throwing, these were aimed shots by generations of shepherds who could nail a wolf at 50 yards with a sling stone. Here's where legend collides violently with history. Christian chronicles claim the Virgin Mary materialized above the cave, turning Muslim arrows back upon their shooters. Muslim sources speak vaguely of mountain witchcraft. The truth was simpler and far more devastating. Acoustic warfare combined with perfect defensive terrain. War cries from the cave were amplified by rock formations, reflected and focused down the valley corridor. To the attacking Muslims, it sounded like thousands of screaming defenders, not hundreds. The psychological impact was instantaneous and devastating. Soldiers at the rear of the column, hearing what sounded like a massive force ahead, pushed forward urgently. Warriors at the front, watching comrades die from above, desperately tried pulling back. The result? Compression, panic, absolute chaos. But the mountain itself was preparing to enter the battle. The limestone cliffs above the valley were weathered and fractured, with massive sections held in place by friction and small keystone rocks. The defenders knew exactly which stones to strike to trigger catastrophic slides. This wasn't luck or chance. It was generational knowledge of mountain shepherds weaponized into a delivery system. The stone rain began in deadly earnest. Not pebbles or random debris, but carefully selected limestone chunks weighing 20 to 50 pounds, dropped from 300 feet elevation. At that height, even a modest stone becomes lethal. Larger chunks could crush straight through any armor, splitting helmets, shattering shields, breaking bones through chainmail. What the Muslim scouts witnessed made them freeze in their tracks, their own forces being compressed into a killing zone where martial skill meant absolutely nothing, where expensive armor became a liability dragging men down, where elite cavalry had to dismount and become awkward infantry, where every advantage of training, equipment, and numbers was completely neutralized by vertical geography. Al-Qama, observing his vanguard disintegrating, faced every commander's worst nightmare. Advancing forward was impossible. The cave approach could only accommodate small numbers, easily slaughtered by defenders. Retreating was becoming difficult as more troops pressed forward into the narrowing valley. Standing still meant death raining from above. This single decision would cost 50,000 lives. Instead of accepting tactical defeat and conducting an orderly withdrawal, Al-Qama ordered a general assault. Every unit was to press forward, overwhelm the defenders through sheer mass. It was a decision born from pride, frustration, and fundamental misunderstanding of mountain combat. And then, at precisely noon, nature and humanity combined to forge hell on earth. The valley transformed into a brutal lesson in mass death. As thousands of Muslim warriors pressed forward into the narrowing approach, physics seized command. The compression point, where the valley narrowed to just 20 men wide, became a meat grinder that would haunt military scholars for centuries. Ahmed from Damascus, veteran of 20 battles, found himself pressed against limestone walls, his sword arm pinned to his side by the sheer mass of his own comrades. He couldn't lift his weapon, couldn't retreat, couldn't even collapse when struck. Men died standing vertical, held upright by the press of bodies around them. The physics of mass panic in confined spaces transformed elite soldiers into helpless victims. As stones rained from above, instinct screamed retreat. But retreat was physically impossible. The column had become a single organism 10,000 men long, capable only of pressing forward into death. Those at the rear, unable to witness the slaughter ahead, kept pushing. Those at the front, watching comrades pulverized by falling rocks, tried desperately to turn back. But then came the first reversal. Pelagius himself led a countercharge from the cave. Just 30 warriors, but 30 men attacking downhill into a packed mass that couldn't maneuver to defend itself. They didn't need exceptional martial skill. They simply had to push forward, stab downward, and let gravity and compression do the killing. The front ranks of Muslims, already dying from the stone bombardment, now faced steel from ahead while being shoved by their own forces from behind. In 10 brutal minutes, 2,000 warriors became 200 corpses. The narrow approach was carpeted with bodies, creating obstacles that made the compression catastrophically worse. Men climbing over their dead comrades became easier targets. Blood made limestone slick as ice. The killing funnel had become a literal funnel of the dead. What followed wasn't battle, it was geographic execution. The limestone ammunition Pelagius' fighters had gathered wasn't random debris. These were carefully selected stones, tested for weight and balance, stockpiled at specific points along the cliff tops. 50-pound chunks that could be rolled to the edge and tipped over with a wooden lever. Consider what 50 pounds of limestone does when dropped from 300 feet. Impact velocity reaches 60 miles per hour. The kinetic energy equals a modern artillery shell. Damascus steel meant nothing. The finest armor from Toledo's legendary forges crumpled like parchment. Men weren't just killed, they were pulverized into the ground. The sound alone shattered spirits. Limestone striking steel creates a bell-like ring that echoes through valleys. Multiply that by hundreds of impacts per minute. Add the wet crunch of stones meeting flesh, the screams of dying men amplified by canyon acoustics, and you have a soundscape from hell itself. Survivors spoke of covering their ears, of the noise driving men to madness. From his command position, Al-Qama watched his army disintegrate. His bodyguard formed a shield roof above him, but even that couldn't stop geology turned into artillery. He witnessed his finest units, warriors who'd broken Byzantine shield walls and Frankish cavalry charges, reduced to cowering figures trying to shelter beneath corpses. Statistical shock tells the brutal story. In the first 10 minutes of the Stone Storm, Pelagius' 300 defenders inflicted 2,000 casualties without losing a single man. The ratio had completely flipped. Instead of 333 attackers per defender, it was now 7 defenders for every attacker who could actually reach the cave mouth. But wait, the real shock was yet to come. This wasn't even the main assault. This was just the preparation phase. The few Muslim soldiers who reached the cave mouth discovered hell's antechamber. The approach required climbing wet limestone while under constant missile fire from above. Those who actually made it faced fresh defenders fighting from elevated positions, the perfect killing geometry. Pelagius' personal combat became the stuff of legend. 3 named opponents fell to his sword. Suleiman the Swift, champion of Cordoba, Hakim ibn Rashid, who'd killed 17 Christians in single combat, and Yusuf al-Mashriqi, whose armor was supposedly blessed by holy men. Each duel ended identically, the attacker exhausted from the climb, facing a defender who'd done nothing but wait and prepare for this moment. Then came the moment historians still passionately debate. Christian sources claimed the Virgin Mary appeared above the cave, visible to both armies. Muslim chronicles speak more vaguely of signs and portents that disturbed their warriors. Whatever the truth, something triggered a morale collapse among the attackers. Men who'd faced death across 3 continents suddenly refused to advance further. But Al-Qama's elite guard, his personal 300 warriors, wouldn't accept defeat. These were men bound by sacred oath to die before retreating. They formed up for one final assault, shields locked, advancing up the blood-soaked slope in perfect discipline. Despite the stone storm, they actually reached the cave mouth, pushing back Pelagius' first defensive line. For a brief moment, it seemed the battle might turn. The Muslim elite were inside the cave entrance, more climbing behind them. Pelagius' men were giving ground. Al-Qama, seeing apparent success, ordered all reserves forward in one massive push. the entire Muslim army surged toward the cave, and that's precisely when the mountain took sides. What happened next still defies rational explanation. Whether by careful design or divine intervention, the limestone cliffs above the battle chose this exact moment to fail catastrophically. The theory of triggered avalanche seems most plausible, defenders targeting keystones that held back tons of fractured rock. But the timing was so absolutely perfect that even modern geologists struggle to explain it fully. 100,000 tons of rock moving at 60 miles per hour down a 40-degree slope. The physics are brutally simple. Nothing survives. The Muslim elite guard at the cave mouth vanished instantly, along with several of Pelagius' own warriors who'd advanced too far in the melee. The main avalanche hit the packed masses in the valley with the force of divine judgment. But God or geology had additional plans for the slaughter. The avalanche didn't just kill, it dammed the Diva River that ran along the valley floor. Bodies and boulders created a natural barrier 30 feet high. Water backed up rapidly in the narrow canyon. Men who'd survived stones and avalanche now faced drowning. The Diva Dam lasted just 20 minutes before bursting catastrophically. When it did, a wall of water carrying thousands of corpses swept down the valley with apocalyptic force. Muslim reinforcements moving up to support the main attack met this macabre flash flood head-on. Fresh troops became fresh victims, swept away by a torrent of water, blood, and bodies. Yet incredibly, Alcama survived the initial avalanche. He'd been positioned far enough back to avoid the main slide, protected by the bodies of his own soldiers. Wounded and half-buried, he pulled himself free and tried desperately to rally survivors. That's when the third reversal struck. Pelagius' fighters, seeing the avalanche had cleared the approach, counterattacked down into the valley with savage fury. Alcama's death remains historically disputed. Christian sources claim a shepherd boy killed him with a perfectly placed sling stone. Muslim sources suggest an arrow through his helmet's eye slot. Others propose he drowned in the Diva flood. What matters is that the Muslim command structure died with him. 7 generals survived the avalanche. 7 different retreat orders were issued simultaneously. The result was chaos multiplied by terror. Units collided trying to follow contradictory commands. The narrow valley that had compressed them during the attack now trapped them during retreat. And suddenly, the hunters became the hunted. Local villagers, both Christian and Muslim, who'd hidden during the approach now emerged from concealment. 7 years of occupation had built resentments that exploded in 7 hours of brutal revenge. Armed with farm implements, hunting bows and stones, they fell upon the routing army like wolves on wounded prey. This is the moment that transforms everything. These weren't exclusively Christians attacking Muslims. Local Muslims who'd lived peacefully under Visigothic rule joined the assault with equal fury. They'd suffered under Alcama's harsh taxation and brutal discipline. The battle transformed from religious war into mountain folk versus foreign oppression. Statistical shock, 90% casualties in 1 hour. Military historians call it mathematically impossible. No pre-modern battle produced such lopsided losses. But this wasn't a battle anymore. It was geology and geography executing an army that had placed itself in an inescapable trap. Pelagius tried desperately to restore order, to take prisoners, to stop the slaughter. His men ignored him completely. 7 years of Muslim dominance were being repaid in blood and vengeance. The killing continued until darkness made it impossible to distinguish friend from foe. The Valley of Death became a charnel house beyond description. Bodies stacked 10 deep at the narrowest points created grotesque dams that turned the battlefield into a series of bloody pools. Armor became anchors, dragging wounded men underwater in barely 2 feet of depth. The finest cavalry in the Muslim world drowned in their own blood and the blood of their comrades. Those who escaped the valley proper faced the mountain peasants. Every village, every shepherd's hut, every mountain trail had transformed into a killing ground. Local knowledge meant nowhere was safe. Warriors who'd conquered from the Indus to the Atlantic were hunted down by children who knew every cave and crevice. The physics of rout are merciless. Once panic seizes a compressed formation, recovery becomes impossible. Men trampled their comrades trying to escape certain death. Officers who tried rallying troops were pushed down and crushed underfoot. The narrowness that had been a tactical problem became an execution sentence. Pelagius' restraint order to spare those who surrendered was universally ignored by his bloodthirsty fighters. This wasn't military justice being enacted, but mountain justice, older and harsher than any written law. Women who'd been violated took their revenge with savage glee. Children who'd witnessed fathers killed picked up stones and joined the hunt. The professional army that had entered these valleys ceased to exist, not through battle, but through complete and total annihilation. The final body count defies rational belief. Conservative estimates place Muslim losses at 50,000 warriors. Enthusiastic chronicles claim 124,000 dead. The truth probably lies somewhere between. Perhaps 70,000 men marched into those valleys, and fewer than 1,000 escaped alive. The greatest military disaster in Islamic history until the Mongol invasions centuries later. And it happened not through sophisticated tactics or brilliant strategy, but through one commander's prideful refusal to respect the mountains and the desperate men who knew them. As the sun set on that blood-soaked valley, nobody yet grasped that they had just witnessed the first domino topple in an 800-year war that would reshape Europe forever. The Valley of Death presented a scene worthy of Dante's darkest imagination. Bodies stacked 10 deep at compression points created grotesque monuments to tactical stupidity. The narrowest section of the approach had become a dam constructed from the dead, forcing the Deva River to carve new channels through banks of human corpses. 3 Muslim soldiers survived to tell the horrifying tale. 3 out of tens of thousands. They'd lived by hiding beneath the dead, breathing through gaps in the corpse pile while Christian peasants methodically checked for survivors to finish off. Their accounts, preserved in Cordoba's chronicles, provide our only glimpse from the losing side. The mountains themselves fell upon us, one survivor testified. Allah turned his face away. The rocks fought for the Christians. Their war cries came from every direction, from earth and sky. We were not defeated by men, but by the land itself. That evening, Pelagius stood among his exhausted warriors and delivered a speech that would echo through centuries. Today, we have proven that free men defending their own land cannot be conquered by any force. Today, we have demonstrated that faith and mountains are stronger than all the armies of the Caliphate. Today, the Reconquista begins, but the victory nearly turned to ashes when scouts brought alarming news. A second Muslim army was approaching. Munuza, the pragmatic governor, had mobilized regional forces when he learned of Alcama's march. 5,000 fresh troops moving carefully, learning from the morning's disaster. Pelagius' fighters were utterly exhausted, desperately low on ammunition, many wounded. What nobody expected was the Muslim governor's next calculated move. Munuza reached the outer valleys, witnessed the carnage, and made a calculation that would define the next century of warfare. He ordered full retreat, not from cowardice, but from hard-won wisdom. The mountains had chosen their champion. The cost of conquest would exceed any possible benefit by orders of magnitude. The news spreads, how a cave battle changed Europe. The news spreading became its own extraordinary phenomenon. from shepherd songs to royal courts in just 4 weeks. The story grew exponentially with each telling. 300 defenders became 30. 10,000 enemy dead became 180,000. By the time word reached Paris, Pelagius had transformed into a new David, anointed by God himself to hold back the Islamic tide threatening all of Christendom. Christian response across Europe was electric with hope. For 11 devastating years, Christendom had watched Islam's seemingly unstoppable advance with growing despair. Constantinople besieged, France invaded, Italy directly threatened. Every victory fed the narrative of divine judgment, of Christianity's failures being punished by God. Covadonga shattered that narrative completely. If Spanish shepherds could destroy the Caliphate's armies, then God hadn't abandoned his people after all. The impossible was suddenly possible. The casualty analysis reveals the truth behind the legend. Real numbers, perhaps 300 defenders versus 20,000 attackers, not the chronicled 180,000. Losses, 5 to 10 Christians, 15 to 18,000 Muslims. Still the most lopsided victory in medieval history, achieved not through military genius but through perfect exploitation of terrain. The cave transformation began immediately, from desperate hideout to sacred shrine in a single day. Pelagius' men constructed the first crude altar where they'd made their stand. Within a year, pilgrims were arriving in steady streams. Within a decade, the cave had become the spiritual heart of Christian resistance in Iberia. Political aftermath moved swiftly and decisively. The surviving Asturian nobles, many who'd remained hidden during the fighting, now emerged to crown Pelagius at Cangas de Ons. The ceremony was modest by royal standards. No proper crown existed, so they fashioned one from mountain flowers. But the symbolism was extraordinarily powerful. Christian kingship had survived in these mountains against all odds. The military aftermath established patterns that would define the Reconquista for 8 centuries. Munuza ordered a no-go zone around the Asturian mountains. Muslim garrisons pulled back to defensible positions in the plains. The economic cost of mountain warfare against determined defenders simply wasn't worth the blood price. Let the Christians have their rocks and caves, the pragmatists argued. But here's where it gets absolutely insane. This strategic withdrawal created a power vacuum that Pelagius exploited with brilliant tactical instinct. Each abandoned Muslim outpost transformed into a Christian stronghold. Each retreating garrison left behind weapons, supplies, even local sympathizers. The kingdom of Asturias grew not through aggressive conquest, but through strategic retreat by its enemies. A masterclass in defensive warfare creating offensive opportunity. What happened next violated every rule of post-battle politics. Instead of mass executions or brutal religious persecution, Pelagius declared protection for any Muslim who swore loyalty to Asturias. Local Muslims who joined the battle were rewarded with land grants. This pragmatism, choosing political stability over religious purity, would make Asturias the seed from which Christian Spain would eventually regrow. The bodies in the valley posed a massive public health problem. Tens of thousands of corpses in a narrow space, summer heat rapidly approaching. Disease could destroy the victors as certainly as military defeat. Pelagius ordered mass cremations, but the sheer number overwhelmed any attempt at proper disposal. In the end, they sealed the narrowest section of the valley with stone walls, creating a massive ossuary. The wall of bones stood for 3 centuries before earthquakes finally buried it beneath mountain rubble. The immediate military consequences were seismic across the entire region. The myth of Muslim invincibility died in that valley. If geography and determination could defeat the Caliphate's finest troops, then reconquest wasn't just a fantasy, it was genuinely possible. Within months, Christian resistance sparked across northern Iberia like wildfire. The Basques rose in their mountains. Galicia expelled its Muslim garrisons through coordinated uprisings. The Pyrenees became a wall of rebellion. The Battle of Covadonga was over, but its echoes would resound for 8 centuries. From this single mountain valley would grow the kingdoms of Len, Castile, Aragon, all the regional powers that would eventually unite to drive Islam completely from Iberia. The Reconquista had begun not with grand strategy or massive armies, but with desperate men making their stand where the mountains themselves could fight beside them. The Reconquista that ignited at Covadonga would last 770 years, from 722 to 1492, when the last Muslim ruler surrendered Granada. 8 centuries of intermittent warfare sparked by 300 men in a cave. No other battle's echo lasted so long or changed so much of history's trajectory. The myth grew exponentially with each generation's retelling. By the time Alfonso X the Wise wrote his royal chronicles, Pelagius commanded angels in battle, the Virgin Mary personally guided Christian arrows, and 187,000 Muslims died in divine flames. The reality, desperate men using terrain intelligently, became less significant than the symbol itself. Covadonga proved that the impossible was possible if you fought on ground of your own choosing. Military lessons from Covadonga echo through history with remarkable consistency. Thermopylae taught the same fundamental truth: terrain trumps numbers. Agincourt reinforced it: technology means nothing in the wrong place. Modern Afghanistan proved it yet again: superpowers die in mountains when locals know the ground intimately. Every insurgency movement studies Covadonga, not for specific tactics, but for the strategic truth embedded in the story. Pick your battlefield carefully, and geography becomes your greatest ally, multiplying your effective force exponentially. Religious significance transformed a simple cave into Spain's spiritual heart. The shrine of Covadonga draws millions of pilgrims annually. They come to witness where Christianity's retreat ended and its advance began. The cave that sheltered 300 desperate men now shelters the idea that faith and determination can overcome any odds, however impossible they seem. Here's the detail that transforms everything. Covadonga created Spanish national identity itself. Before 722, there were Visigoths, Romans, Celts, Iberians, a fractured collection of peoples. After Covadonga, there were Spaniards. The battle forged a people by giving them a shared story of resistance, a common enemy, and a sacred starting point for their national narrative. Modern Spain traces its birth directly to that cave and that impossible day. Modern parallels proliferate across military history. Every insurgency, every resistance movement, every underdog military force studies Covadonga, not for specific tactics. Nobody fights with slingstones anymore, but for the eternal principles embedded in the story. Make the enemy fight where their advantages evaporate. Use terrain as a force multiplier. Transform apparent weakness into strength by choosing your battlefield with surgical precision. The numbers debate continues raging among historians. Were there genuinely 300 defenders or 3,000? Did 10,000 Muslims perish or 100,000? But obsessing over exact figures misses the fundamental point entirely. What matters is the ratio. A tiny force defeating a massive one through intelligent exploitation of geography. Whether 1 to 33 or 1 to 333, the principle remains constant. Terrain can trump numbers when used with knowledge and determination. This is where legend and history collide violently, and both contain truth. The legend inspires. God fights for the righteous. Faith moves mountains. The history teaches. Know your ground intimately. Use every advantage. Force the enemy to fight on your terms. Both lessons matter profoundly. Both shaped 8 centuries of European warfare. The philosophical weight of Covadonga transcends mere military history. When defeat is not an option, when your back is pressed against the wall or deep inside a cave, impossible odds become completely irrelevant. You fight not to win, but because not fighting means ceasing to exist as a people. That desperation, channeled through perfect terrain, creates miracles that echo through centuries of human memory. The human cost haunts any celebration of Covadonga. Victory was built on bodies. A kingdom was built on bones. Tens of thousands died horrible, agonizing deaths, crushed beneath stones, drowned in flash floods, hunted down like animals. The Reconquista that began at Covadonga would ultimately claim millions more lives over 8 brutal centuries. Glory always extracts a price measured in blood and suffering. 300 men hiding in a cave changed history forever, not through superior strength or divine intervention alone, but through absolute refusal to kneel before conquest. They proved that empires could be stopped, that the impossible was achievable, that sometimes the mountains themselves would fight for freedom. Covadonga teaches us that when your back is truly against the wall, or in this case, deep inside a limestone cave, impossible odds become meaningless abstractions. Sometimes geography is destiny. Sometimes the rocks themselves remember what men choose to forget. And sometimes, just sometimes, 300 starving, desperate men in a cave can alter the course of world history forever. The mountains chose their champion that day. The champion chose to fight rather than submit. And Europe would never be the same. So what's the real lesson of Covadonga that echoes across 13 centuries? It's not just about tactics or terrain. It's about what happens when people decide that surrender isn't an option. When you've lost everything except the ground beneath your feet and the will to defend it. Pelagius and his 300 didn't win because they were stronger, better equipped, or more numerous. They won because they understood something their enemies didn't. In the right place at the right time with absolute commitment, the impossible becomes inevitable. The next time someone tells you the odds are too great, the challenge too massive, remember a cave in the mountains of Asturias. Remember 300 men who faced 100,000. And remember that they won. If this story of impossible victory against overwhelming odds inspired you, hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment telling me which underdog victory from history you want covered next. Share this with someone who needs to hear that impossible doesn't mean what they think it means. The mountains remember. History remembers. And now, you'll remember too.